Howdy. I'm Gray Pilgrim. Time for a history lesson. Oh, before I get into that, two things. One, I wanted to say thank you. My subscriber count has risen to 922. And for that, I sincerely say thank you to the folks who have subscribed to me. I'm just a scotch short of the 1,000 you need for for YouTube to notice you. But that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. I just got a note from YouTube, basically slapping my hand for saying something off color or naughty or something. Did it tell me what I said? No. Did it tell me where I said it? No. I think it was a bot. Excuse me. I think it was a bot, and I don't think it really. I don't think they really knew what the heck they were talking about. I don't know. I looked at my videos. You know, somehow it reminds me of a what do they call that? The sessions that the Red Chinese used to hold on people. Struggle sessions. That's it. When you got to figure things out, because I hear, and I looked around on forums and stuff, and it turns out that things like that happen all the time, where you get slapped for things that you said 10 years ago, or even more. Well, heck, I don't know what I said, and I don't know when I said it. I wrote back and said, could you please give me some information about what I did? And they didn't. You know, of course, I mean, I think it was a bot. I'm not sure. Anyway, but today, well, I wanted to talk about a book, and I wanted to talk about some other stuff besides that book. This is a book called Pistols of the Warlords by Ian McCollum of Forgotten Weapons. Fascinating, excellent book. It's really huge because it's like an art book. It's published by a group called Headstamp Publishing. Headstamp published his first book on the French rifles, and this is his second book. He has several out there. Now he's co-authored some other guides out there. I forget the name of them, but they're expensive, and I cannot justify buying them at the moment. Besides which, I've got another head stamp that I've got. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 head stamps already, and I'm in the process of buying a 7th and an 8th. Yeah, two more. And one of them's called Clockwork Basilisk, and it's about the original revolvers, which were flintlock. And I'm fascinated by old guns. And speaking of old guns, Pistols of the Warlords. Well, what are the Warlords? China's history goes way back, way back. There was a Ming dynasty up until about 1636, I think, and then a group of Manchus overcame it and started a new dynasty called the Qing. And the Qing dynasty ruled until, I think, 1912, and was kicked out by basically the revolutions. In the late 19th century, early 20th, it collapsed. 1900 was the Boxer Rebellion, the attack on the European quarter in Peking, and the stand there by all of the various nationalities together. It was probably the very first UN in a way. Anyway, I mean, you had the Japanese, the Italians, the British, the Americans, everybody there, and they were arming the walls and keeping these Boxers out, and it was an awful thing, and a lot of people got killed, and it wasn't at all fun. But at least it was a meeting of minds of the various nations for bare survival. Well, anyway, this is because Geneva Convention said, "Thou shalt not sell rifles to any of the warlord factions when China was fighting in the warlord period." In 1900, or was it 1912, when the Qings fell. In the south, Sun Yat-sen founded the Republic of China. Well, he had control over maybe a quarter to two-quarter, maybe half of China. The northern warlords and generals and such decided, nah, we don't like that. And the Sun Yat-sen was the president of the Republic of China, and he hired a warlord of his own to basically lead his nationalist army. His name was Chiang Kai-shek. And when Sun was, I think, died, Chiang took over and led the nationalists until their defeat by the Red Communists, and they're fleeing to the island of Formosa, later known as Taiwan. Anyway, that aside, in this turmoil started all sorts of other wars. The Sino-Japanese War, for instance, in which Japan decided they wanted Manchuria, Korea, all sorts of areas in heartland of China that they would control. And I have some other books on that subject. This is an excellent book. It's a Amazon print on demand thing called China's Small Arms of the Second Sino-Japanese War by a man named Bin Shah, who is Chinese. And the first edition of this was wonderful. It was in color, but it was in Mandarin. But this is a print on demand, and it's in black and white, unfortunately. But it's just chock full of information. Speaking of that war, here's another interesting book. This is the Japanese Rifles of World War II. This was written by Duncan McCollum, who happens to be Ian's dad, and was a collector of Japanese rifles. And so he was doing that. Oh, by the way, the reason I have this out is that, as I said, Geneva said, "Thou shalt not import rifles." Didn't say anything about pistols. And this was the favorite pistol of most of the warlords, a Mauser C96, because you can make a carbine out of it by just putting the stock on. And they would arm hundreds of their troops with these things, to the point where they even started making them locally. And there's one out there, I mean, when they made them, they noticed all the markings on there, and all they knew is that was magic, because it was in Western script, not in Chinese. So what they did is they just duplicated it as best they could. And some of these small shop craftsmen would put all kinds of marks on them. That's what this book is about, is all of the various craft gun makers who put bizarre marks all over their guns. And it has some pictures and descriptions of them. This one, there's one very famous one that they made called a Wowzer. They put down Wowzer. Who knows? But anyway, this is a real C96, but I just thought I'd throw it in there as an example of the kind of guns that they used. Well, anyway, another book that was really good was Imperial Japanese Handguns by James Brown. And this is about all of the World War II, and just prior to World War II guns that they used. Another excellent book, but one you cannot find very easily. I don't know if you can find it at all. This is a book called The Warlord Period, and it's in Chinese, and I found it online, and I ran it through Google Translate and printed it off. And it's a fascinating work about the Warlords period. I don't know who wrote it. It's not this book. It's a different book, but it's just fascinating. Also, I have these two. This is the original, Arming the Dragon, by Dolph Goldsmith, and it's full of typos and some other issues that it had. Then Headstamp reprinted that and came up with their version of Arming the Dragon, which is an excellent book. I mean, I've read both of these, and this has some additions. And if you're interested in this subject, I would really strongly suggest checking out Headstamp. Good publisher, full of information, and this, get a copy of this. I mean, it's rather expensive, but it's worth it. It is. It's like art. It's like an art book, like your coffee table sort of thing. And it just is chock full of pictures of various guns that they had and used. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful book. You could spend hours and hours looking through this, figuring things out. Because basically what they did is they bought pistols from everywhere, any they could get a hold of. Now remember, this is during the 1920s, the 1930s. FN, Mauser, all the various makers in Europe, plus the US, and even in England, were looking for markets because, I mean, people had just got through fighting World War I. All of Europe was awash in guns, and no one was buying. So they were looking for any kind of market out there. They found the Warlords, and they started making all sorts of stuff for them. And they would ship any extras they had over to China. Well, then, you know, things got a little weird when the Red Chinese took over, and all of this market completely collapsed. But it's the period, that window from I think it was 1945 that the Red Chinese finally won. But it was by that time all the warlords had been wiped out except for Chiang Kai-shek. And so I don't know if many of these were still around there, because they would round them up and scrap them, melt them down, or toss them in the sea. And the Japanese, of course, would get all the weapons they could out of it. They started their own arsenals. The Chinese had basically craft makers, small gun shops all over the place making stuff. But the Japanese started some real arsenals in Manchuria and other areas that they controlled. I have a Type 38 rifle that was made in a Chinese arsenal, and it's one of my favorites. Though I've never shot it because I don't have any 6.5 Jap ammo to use. You know, it's kind of hard to find these days. And reloading it, real hard. Anyway, another interest of mine, well, you know, I'm really into history. This is history. I love history. And the history of ordnance is my latest thing. Obviously, I got a few books on the subject. And this is just a sideline of the development of early 20th century pistols and, you know, the far-ranging nature of their trade. So that's all I got to talk about. There'll be a quiz at 2 tomorrow. Happy trails.